don't understand the question, but I don't care. We win the trophy, everything good, and yeah, next question.
Today, just 1 goal and 3 assists in 27 games. Dropped from the Europa League squad, unwanted at Tottenham and also at his home club Leipzig. Completely unrecognisable. So, what happened?
Marvellous hits! A rocket!
How did one of Europe's most exciting strikers become a forgotten man? To understand the fall, we have to go back. Back to the time when Werner was at the top. Long before the misses came, before Chelsea fans tore their hair out, there was a time when Timo Werner was the guy, one of Europe's most exciting young strikers. And it all began in Stuttgart. Werner didn't just walk into professional football. No, the guy sprinted in, full throttle. He joined the VfB Stuttgart Youth Academy in 2002 at just 6 years old. Fast forward 10 years, and at 16, he was already playing for the U19 team and casually scored 24 goals in one season. 24 goals, probably while he was still doing his homework. This performance did not go unnoticed. In 2013, he won the Fritz Walter Medal in gold, basically the award in German football that screams future superstar. Most winners went on to achieve great things. Think of Götze, Havertz, and at the time Werner. At just 17 years and 4 months, Timo made his debut in the Europa League qualifiers for Stuttgart, becoming the youngest player in the club's history. Not long after, he worked his way through all the youngest records like a to-do list. Youngest Bundesliga debutant, youngest DFB Pokal player, youngest goalscorer. Then he scored twice against Freiburg, becoming the youngest Bundesliga player of all time with a brace. The man was on fire, and to prove he was not a one-season wonder, he racked up 95 Bundesliga appearances for Stuttgart before he even turned 21. 95 appearances. He even became the youngest player in Bundesliga history with 50 appearances, a record that was only broken by a certain Kai Havertz, who said, "Hold my apple spritzer." But then Stuttgart was relegated in 2016, and Werner, he didn't fancy playing in the second division. He had a choice to stay and help his beloved club, or to take the next step. He chose the next step. He bravely moved to RB Leipzig, a newly promoted club, playing their very first Bundesliga season. High risk, high reward, and boy, did it pay off. His first season in Leipzig, mind-blowing. 21 goals, top German goalscorer in the league.
Weitermacht, dann denke ich schon, dass auch eben eine gute Karriere in der Nationalmannschaft vor sich hat.
Ich werde die Zeit in Leipzig sehr.
And shot Leipzig straight into the Champions League on their first try. Timo was electrifying, pure pace, deadly runs in behind, and a true goal-scoring instinct. And he just kept breaking more records. In 2018, he became the youngest player with 150 Bundesliga games. Yes, 150 at 22 years old. At that age, most people are still juggling resumes. And he did that against Real Madrid in the Champions League semi-final. Werner was in the right place at the right time and tapped in the opening goal. Chelsea won 2-0 that night, and guess what? That goal helped Chelsea advance to the Champions League final. Yes, from flop to final hero. And then came the crowning moment, the Champions League triumph. Chelsea beat Manchester City in the final. Werner didn't score a goal, but his movements created chaos in the City defence. That title, it's in the history books. No one can take that away from him. Next season, Werner continued. He started in the UEFA Super Cup against Villarreal and helped Chelsea win another title, this time in a penalty shootout. He scored his first seasonal goal in the Carabao Cup against Aston Villa. Again, it went to a penalty shootout, and again, Chelsea won. And who could forget that crazy quarter-final against Real Madrid in April 2022? Chelsea led 3-0 in the second leg, and it looked like they had accomplished a miracle. Werner scored one of those important goals, chipping the ball past Courtois and putting Chelsea ahead. For a moment, it looked like they had done the impossible. But then came Benzema. Extra time, heartbreak, Chelsea was out. Still, Werner left an impression. He was part of a team that won the Champions League and the Super Cup, and had countless moments where his work ethic and pace changed games, even when goals weren't scored. His Chelsea chapter was simply a mix of highs and lows, moments where you could only scratch your head. In one moment, he flew across the pitch. In the next, he missed sitters from 2 meters out. It was confusing, frustrating, but in a strange way, also endearing. Werner wasn't a typical Premier League superstar, but he never stopped running and never stopped fighting. But in this case, everyone knew he couldn't survive in the Premier League and needed a fresh start. And where better to do that than at the club where you scored over 30 goals in a season? So after the ups and downs in England, Timo Werner did what many of us would do when things get a bit too chaotic. He went back home, back to Leipzig, back to where the goals flowed like tap water and the fans chanted his name. When Werner officially returned to RB Leipzig for around £25.3 million, it made perfect sense. It was less about money and more about peace of mind, less pressure, more love. He signed a 4-year contract and you could feel the energy change. He returned to a place where he was wanted. Just a few days later, he was back on the pitch. Leipzig against Cologne. It didn't take long for him to mark his return. He shot from outside the box. The keeper probably should have done better, but hey, that's his problem. The ball went in, the stadium exploded, and Werner was smiling again. It was a relief, a yes, I'm home, let's go. Then, just when you thought this reunion couldn't get any sweeter, he scored a brace against Bochum, but not just any brace. That was his 110th goal for Leipzig. This man reached triple-digit goals for a club that wasn't even in the Bundesliga a decade ago. He became the first player in club history to score 100 goals. But you know how football is. In one moment you're flying, in the next, life comes at you with a tackle on your ankle. Literally, in the Champions League game against Shakhtar Donetsk, Werner suffered an ankle injury. At first, it didn't look like much, but then came the diagnosis. He was out for the 2022 World Cup. Brutal. The timing couldn't have been worse. And honestly, Germany could have really used someone like Werner. Say what you want about his finishing, but his pace, his runs and his pressing are priceless in big tournaments. This injury really stopped the momentum he had built, but he continued to work behind the scenes. He recovered and even scored his 100th Bundesliga goal in a 3-2 win against Augsburg. Another milestone, but something was different. The Werner we saw was not the same electrifying guy from the 2019-2020 season. He played okay, but he didn't shine. Have you ever seen a player and thought, yes, he's doing his job, but it doesn't feel the same as it used to? That was Werner now. In the 2023-24 season, Leipzig's coach Marco Rose was faced with a decision. Werner had only started 8 league games in the first half of the season. That's not a small drop, that's a complete collapse in playing time. Block 7, the failure at Tottenham and the humiliation, approximately 2,500 words. The goals also dried up, and since Leipzig was fighting for the top spots and wanted to remain competitive in Europe, all positions had to be filled optimally, so the club made a decision. They loaned him to Tottenham Hotspur in January 2024. It wasn't a punishment, it was more of a lifeline, a chance for Werner to rediscover his rhythm in a new environment. Leipzig had brought in new faces, and Werner, though a club legend, just didn't quite fit into the current system anymore. So he went to North London on loan, hoping for a comeback. And honestly, that says a lot. Despite all the noise, despite the crisis of form, Werner is still in demand. People still believe in him because deep down, everyone knows what he's capable of. At first, it all sounded like a pretty good deal for everyone involved. The Spurs were struggling with injuries and needed a fast, experienced striker. Leipzig wanted to make space, and Werner just wanted playing time. Just 1 goal and 3 assists this season. For a striker, that's tough, especially on an Ange Postecoglou team that creates chances. Spurs fans were hoping for fireworks, but instead got a damp sparkler. And then came the final blow. Tottenham made it clear they would not sign him permanently, and honestly, they had a purchase option of €8.5 million. In today's football, that's basically pocket change. For a player with Werner's track record, that should be a no-brainer. But the Spurs are sending him back to Leipzig. And honestly, you can't blame them, because it's not just about money. It's about form, it's about confidence, and it's about whether it's a good fit. And right now, Werner doesn't tick any of those boxes. He's not catastrophic. He's still making his typical runs. He presses like crazy, but nothing comes of it. The goals are missing. The killer instinct is gone. And it's not just bad stats. He has completely disappeared from the scene. After his injury in January, he missed 4 games in a row, and in the last 6, he was only in the squad once. And if that wasn't a red enough warning signal, the Spurs dropped him from their Europa League squad in favour of their new signing, Mattis. That's not just a demotion, that's the football version of being ghosted. And honestly, that says a lot.
When he arrived, Spurs fans were cautiously optimistic. They didn't expect a prime Thierry Henry, but maybe, just maybe, they would get the 2019 Bundesliga version of Timo Werner, who tore defences apart, stretched the opposition, and actually converted his chances. And to be fair, at first it looked promising. Good movement, a couple of assists, 1 goal. Enough for Tottenham to say, yeah, let's extend the loan. But then reality set in. After the initial hype, it suddenly looked like we were seeing the ghost of Werner's Chelsea days, but this time with even less confidence. You could literally see the gears turning in his head every time he was near the penalty box. Hesitant, unsure, out of sync. Even Leipzig, the club you return to, isn't planning with him. Their sporting director basically said, "We need fresh air." That's corporate football speak for, "Timo, please pack your bags." Subtle maybe, but the message was loud and clear. Still, there could be a lifeline, a tiny glimmer of hope for Werner. Leipzig recently fired Marco Rose and is looking for a new coach. And a new coach means new ideas, maybe even second chances. If Timo Werner still has any chance of reviving his career, it might be under new leadership in Leipzig, assuming they don't sell him before pre-season even begins. But right now, he's neither plan A nor B or C, more of a footnote.
Forgotten by the Spurs, unwanted by Leipzig, and increasingly out of the conversation. His career went from club hero to a forgotten star. He's no longer even mentioned in connection with the national team. And that raises an important question. What caused the downfall of Timo Werner? Well, the first reason was that he left the Bundesliga too early. You know, sometimes timing is everything in football. And with Timo Werner, you have to wonder, did he move to Chelsea too soon? Look at 2020. Werner was unstoppable in the Bundesliga. He had just scored 34 goals in 45 games across all competitions for Leipzig, and all of Europe was watching. He was fast, dangerous, and thrived in a system that was made for him. Leipzig, under Julian Nagelsmann, focused on quick transitions, high pressing, and attacking space. That's exactly what Werner needed. The team was not designed for possession's sake. It was designed to explode forward, and Werner was the one leading the charge. But here's the thing. One more season at Leipzig would have made a huge difference. Another year to dominate the Bundesliga, another year to improve his finishing, to grow into the role of a main actor, to build consistency. He was only 24 when he left, still plenty of time. But instead, the bright lights of the Premier League called, and Chelsea came, activating his release clause of £47.5 million. And that brings us to the next reason for his downfall: pressure. Now it gets tricky. From day one, Werner was not seen at Chelsea as a promising young striker from Germany, but as a £50 million signing who better deliver. That's a completely different level of pressure, especially when you join a team that plays a completely different style of football. Chelsea's system was, let's just say, not Leipzig's. At Leipzig, Werner had a lot of space to run into. Defenders in the Bundesliga often play a high line, and Werner thrived on playing on the offside line. But at Chelsea, opponents sit deep, close down space, and you have to be extremely precise in tight areas. Suddenly, the open runs turned into crowded penalty boxes and quick 1-2 passes, something Werner wasn't really built for, and that's where his confidence started to crumble. You could see it. His first touches became hesitant, his shots went wide, many missed sitters, and that didn't help his confidence in the slightest. Another reason for his downfall was how hard the Premier League is. The thing is, at Leipzig, a missed shot was not the end of the world. He would get 3 more chances in the next 10 minutes. But at Chelsea, chances are rare, especially in tight Premier League games. When he missed big chances, the fans noticed, the media noticed, everyone noticed. So yes, maybe he left a little too early. Maybe another year at Leipzig would have helped iron out those weaknesses, build consistency and strengthen the mental game, because the raw talent was and is there. The pace, the runs, the work ethic. But without confidence, even the best strikers look average. And unfortunately, that's exactly what happened to Werner at Chelsea. Not because he was lazy, not because it was him, but because he stumbled into the pressure cooker of the Premier League without the right shield, and he got burned. And it seems he never fully recovered. But what do you think? Does he still have a chance to get back to the top? Write it in the comments, and when you're done, check out our last 2 videos on what makes Germany's style of play under Nagelsmann so special, and about the incredible career of Ronaldinho. Thanks, we'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay on the ball.